This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Looking to escape all the festive chaos? Turn holiday hecticness into harmony with Heyday, the mobile game that helps you harvest calm, one crop at a time. Reclaim your me time. Relax, decorate, and enjoy farming bliss as you tend to your animals and harvest crops as part of a welcoming, stress-free community. Join over 20 million players. Just tap or click on the banner now to download Heyday for free today.
A science story, huh?
These NYU scientists,
It
felt
right.
But I was so
And I just thought, well,
I had figured it out.
it was that golden moment.
Because science was on my side.
hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to the Story Collider, where true personal stories about science help us to discover how weird and wonderful it is to exist in this world and be a human. I'm your host, Misha Gajewski. In today's episode, we're diving into tales of unexpected bravery and heroes that come in all shapes, sizes, and forms. Because not all heroes wear capes. Our first story is from Rebecca Stronger. Her story was recorded at Pier 57's Discovery Tank in New York City, and it's one of those nail-biting tales that keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole way through. I don't want to give too much away because I can't wait for you to hear this incredibly heroic story. So, here's Rebecca.
My daughter and I are riding our bikes to school one morning. It's quiet, it's clear, it's late summer. And we come around the corner of 15th Street and Prospect Park West, and I look over my right shoulder to make sure she's keeping up, and I can see that she's right there behind me. I can also see that just inside the entrance to the park, there's a man on the ground, and another man standing over him, looking down, talking on the phone. I assume it's 911. And without thinking, I stop my bike, I stop my kid, and I say, I think I need to go over there and see if I can help. And stay right here, don't move, don't follow me. And I run. The man is unconscious, and he's not breathing. His skin is ashy, his lips are blue. I put my fingers on his neck. It's warm, but I can't find a pulse. And so I stimulate his chest, and I don't get a response. So I drop down on my knees, and I start doing CPR. I know this man is dead, and I know that CPR rarely works, but I try. I start to notice people are coming by, and I yell out, "Can somebody please go stand with my daughter? She's 10, she's in the bike lane, she has 2 bikes with her." And then I look back down at my hands, and I can't figure out, are they on the left side of his chest or are they on the right side? My brain is looking, but I can't figure it out. And so I close my eyes and I imagine myself laying on my back in the same position that he's in. And yes, I'm on his left side. Okay, good. And then I look over at his face and his slack jaw, and I think, I really don't want to do mouth to mouth on this guy. I mean, that's a lot for a dead guy. I think that's going a little too far. But just then a woman runs up and she yells, "I'm a nurse, go faster." And so I go faster. And we work together for a while. And eventually, the nurse and I switch places, and she takes over compressions, and I keep my hand on the man's wrist. And with each push on his chest, I can feel that she's generating a strong pulse. And when she stops for a life check, she looks at me. I don't feel anything, and so we keep going. Eventually, the FDNY arrives. I stand up, I brush the gravel off of my knees, and I go find my kid. She's safely on the sidewalk, guarding our 2 bicycles, petting someone's dog. When she sees me, she stands up to meet me and she says, "Is the man dead?" And I say, "Yeah, that man is dead." And then she says, "Do I have trauma from this?" And I laugh and I say, "No, baby, I don't think so. Nobody did anything to hurt this man, and he probably had a problem with his heart. And look, so many people just came to help him. So I think you're okay." This seems to satisfy her, so we hop on our bikes and I take her to school and I head to work. About a half a block from work, I stop my bike again. I lean it on the wall of the storage place across the street, and I sit down on the hot sidewalk and I cry. Not because I just did CPR on a dead man. I cry because the night before, I found out that my best friend, John, has been lying to me, and I'm bereft about it. John and I have a very close and a very complex relationship. I'm always the first person that he calls when something big or small is happening, and he's always the first person that I call. And when things are good with us, I'm good. But we also fight. And when things are not good with us, I'm not good. And lately, our fights are lasting longer, and we don't recover as quickly as we used to. And when I try to talk to him to work things through, he's distant in a way that he's never been with me before, and he gets aggressive. And then later, he'll act as if nothing ever happened, and that's really hard on me. But I love him a lot, so I keep trying. So, the night before I met the dead man in the park, I found out that John has had a girlfriend for almost a year, and he's been lying to me about it. I don't care about the girl, I care about the lie, and I feel so betrayed. I had a feeling he was seeing someone, and every time I asked him about it, he would deny it, and he would get super annoyed with me, and I don't know why he would lie about something like that, so I believed him. So when I found out, I texted him to tell him that I knew. I know he hates when I text about big things, but I knew there was going to be a fight, and I hate talking to him on the phone when he's angry. Shortly after I texted him, he called, and when I saw it was him, I froze a little bit, and I didn't pick up the phone. And this was probably the first time in 35 years that I didn't pick up the phone when John called. So on this quiet, clear, late summer morning, I'm sitting on the sidewalk crying because I feel like if I don't matter enough to John for him to be honest with me, then how do I matter at all? I can't bring myself to get up and cross the street and go into work. And so I call a friend and we talk and I start to calm down. I tell him about the CPR, and the detail that sticks most in my mind is that I can feel the man's ribs break when I was doing compressions. I feel bad for breaking his ribs. I feel bad for doing CPR when I knew he was dead anyway. I'm a veterinarian. I know CPR on animals, not on humans, and I feel like I had no business being there at all. And that's contributing to this feeling that I just don't matter. A few days later, I'm emailing with one of my veterinary clients, and I sign off with my typical, "Please let me know if there's anything else that you need." She replies with, "There is something that I need. I need to thank you for your heroic actions on Friday morning in the park. The man whose life you saved is the father of my daughter's best friend." I have to read that sentence again. The man whose life you saved. The man in the park is alive, and apparently he thinks it's really funny that it was her veterinarian that saved his life. His wife contacts me later that week. She cries on the phone and she goes on and on about his recovery. I tell my close friends the story, and they're so proud of me, and they tell me that I should be proud of myself, but I'm not. I'm not even sure that it really happened. It's such a surreal blur. And all I want to know is if I actually broke the man's ribs. I feel like if he can tell me that his ribs were broken, then I know that it really did happen, that I was there, and that I really did make a difference. Meanwhile, I still haven't talked to John. We usually talk at least a few times a week, but not now. I am the one who he always calls, but I haven't done it lately. The night that I text him and he called and I didn't pick up, he didn't leave a message, and I haven't heard from him since. And look, over 35 years, our relationship has had its ups and downs, but this feels really different. And I'm reminded of the nurse doing compressions, generating a strong pulse. And that pulse disappears when she stops. The following week, Mary, the client who knows the man, is in my exam room with her dog, Rosie. Rosie just had a minor surgery and she's doing well. I ask Mary about the man and how she knew about my involvement. She tells me her daughter saw a Facebook post about what had happened. I saw that post. I saw it the same day. There were so many comments from people who knew me, clients, friends, literally singing my praises, and I hated it. I felt embarrassed. I felt like I was invading somebody's privacy. But now here with Mary, now that I knew that it connected me to the situation in a more real way, I was grateful for it. And later that same day, one of my favorite patients had an appointment. Celeste is a big, fat, happy black lab, and she's recovering from a pretty serious illness. And over the last few weeks, she was really worrying me. She would mope into the exam room and show no interest in treats. But on this afternoon, she pranced into the waiting room, and her owners were behind her smiling. When she saw me, she jogged right over, she took a treat, she sat on my foot and practically knocked me over, just like old times. It was really nice. I really like I really like her people too. We have one of those warm doctor-client relationships that cross over a little bit into personal. And I know that one of them is a paramedic. So after I take care of Celeste, I tell them the story about the dead man in the park who isn't dead anymore. And then I tell them that in veterinary medicine, CPR almost never works. And the one who's a paramedic starts nodding and smiling practically with his whole body before I even finish my sentence. And he says, yeah, it's the same in human medicine. CPR almost never works. And then he tells me, recommendations for CPR change all the time. But there are two things that we know that are the most effective: to start compressions right away and not to stop. And then he tells me that I should be very proud of myself. And this time, it lands. And I feel like I'm going to cry again, only in a good way. Because he just gave me this gift of understanding that I do matter. And look, I know it wasn't this man's time to die. The universe put me and everyone who was there that day in place to keep him alive. And while I still think of John and his new absence from my life, it's actually not that often. The closeness that we had is gone, and I miss that a lot. But I don't miss the struggle and the unease. And I'm starting to make connections between the ups and downs of our relationship and how I see myself in this world. And I'm starting to see myself a little bit differently. And I know that the universe put this dying man in my path, not only to show me how truly connected I am in this world, but also to show me that I may have been doing CPR alone in this long relationship with John. And it just might be time to stop and to let it go.
That was Rebecca. To find out more about her, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Speaking of being heroes, being a storyteller on stage is just one way to make Storyclatter happen, but if standing alone in the spotlight in front of an audience doesn't speak to you, maybe becoming a Storyclatter donor might be more your speed. Storyclatter donors play a vital role in our ability to bring you this podcast. We're in this together. Storyclatter is one big experiment that's designed to connect us around our love of discovery, curiosity, and the natural world. If you believe in the power these stories have and this mission, please donate to the Storyclatter at storyclatter.org/donate. The most popular level is $10 a month, and you can make your tax-deductible donation at storyclatter.org/donate. But really, any level makes a difference, and we're so grateful to everyone who supports Storyclatter. Here's a story that doesn't get told enough. In 2025, over 1 billion women worldwide will be in menopause. That's right, 1 billion. Yet for too long, women over 40 have been ignored by the healthcare system. But Alloy Health is here to change that. They're the no BS solution to aging healthfully with safe, effective, FDA-approved treatments for menopause symptoms prescribed by menopause-trained doctors. And it's so easy. No waiting rooms, no pharmacy lines, no hassle. You can handle everything from your phone, and Alloy delivers right to your door with free shipping. Menopause is inevitable, but suffering doesn't have to be. Alloy has everything you need to age happily and healthily. So, check them out at myalloy.com. And from now until March 31st, Storyclatter listeners can enjoy $20 off their first order. Just use promo code COLLIDER and get $20 off.
The Subaru Share the Love event is a fulfilling way to get in a great vehicle and support a great cause. When you buy or lease a new Subaru from now until January 2nd, Subaru and its retailers will donate a minimum of $300 to charity. By the end of this year's event, Subaru will have donated nearly $320 million to charity. Visit Subaru.com/share to support a great cause today.
Our next story is from evolutionary biology PhD student Ruby Mustill. Ruby's story was recorded in Montreal, Quebec, at the 3rd Joint Congress on Evolutionary Biology meeting in the Palais de Congrès. Her story is one of those classic tales that totally proves Murphy's Law of when you think things can't get any worse, they do. And I just know you're going to love this charming and endearing tale of mishaps. Here's Ruby.
The baboons have been missing for a month, and I am sick of looking for them. It's June, and I'm 4 months into a year managing a remote field site in Zambia. I'm supposed to be studying baboons, but it's hard to do that when you can't find them anywhere. The good thing is that I'm pretty sure I have the perfect solution for low morale. So I zip up my canvas tent, and I walk with determination towards the kitchen, past the collection of bamboo huts that make up our research camp. I'm already excited by the time I brush mouse poop off a box of shelf-stable milk and pour sugar into a mixing bowl. I'm about to make apple cinnamon muffins, and I cannot wait to taste them. I'm in Zambia because I want to pursue a PhD in primatology, but in order to let myself follow that path, I feel like I need more field experience. I've done fieldwork before, but I had electricity and running water. So in my mind, I've yet to prove whether I have the resolve to handle the real deal. And my feelings about my job are mixed. On one hand, it's pretty cool. I live in a beautiful forest. I have delinquent vervet monkeys as my neighbors, and I've already seen some of the weirdest bugs I've ever encountered in my life. I'm learning that nothing is more exciting than recognizing a new baboon based on their face, just the way you'd recognize a person, when a couple months earlier, they'd all just look like baboons. And I feel really lucky to be there, to have been given the chance to study wild animals and take the next step towards a PhD. On the other hand, I'm in over my head at the field site. I have 8 months left to fulfill my contract, and I'm starting to wonder if I actually do have what it takes to do fieldwork. After a month, looking for the missing baboons is getting demoralizing. I've walked 50 miles in the last 4 days alone, and I'm starting to feel sorry for myself. It's cold. My tent is thin, so I sleep with my legs curled up on top of me to stay warm at night. My lower back aches from my mattress, which I'm pretty sure used to be a rat's nest, and which still has a mushy pit in the middle. And I just had malaria, which kicked my ass. I know I'm fortunate to be doing science, or trying to do science, in a national park in Zambia, but I'm rethinking whether studying animals as a career is actually worth all this trouble. Do I really want to do this again as a PhD student in a few years? I'm also sad because I miss my friends and family. My dad cried when he dropped me off at the airport, and he's not much of a crier, so it broke my heart. 4 months later, my chest still hurts whenever I think about him, watching me from the other side of security with tears in his eyes. I miss my family more now that the only other Westerner I work with has been gone on vacation for 3 weeks. Our camp feels like a ghost town with just me in it. I have Zambian coworkers too, but they live together in a camp down the road in brick houses. So I eat all my meals by myself, and my cell service is too unstable to call anyone from home. I feel most alone at night, in my tent, listening to animals walk by in the darkness. The animals are almost always antelope, but I worry that one day they might be elephants. I didn't know that elephants could be scary until I worked in Zambia, but that was one of the first things I learned. Whenever I leave camp to follow the baboons, I have to go with a park ranger who carries a machine gun. Not because of poachers or lions, but in case we run into elephants. What I'm told is that in Zambia, decades of human hostility have made elephants scared of people, and they can be unpredictable and aggressive as a result. I've also been told horror stories. Just 2 months earlier, a primatologist in Uganda was trampled to death. And when one of my bosses was a grad student, she ran into an elephant outside the same camp that I'm now living in. The armed guard that she was working with ran away, leaving her to die. And she told me that she was curled up in a bush for hours while the elephant circled her until it finally lost interest. So all these thoughts and frustrations and fears are on my mind when I decide to make my muffins. I'm particularly desperate for something sweet because I've eaten boiled potatoes and instant ramen and soggy rice for long enough that just looking at those things has started to make me feel sick. My friends from home have asked me to stop texting them about how much I miss egg rolls. But I'm feeling confident that the muffins are going to make everything better. So I'm almost finished with my batter, and I'm preheating the oven when I realize my mistake. I have no flour. I also have no car. The closest town is a 2-hour drive away, and no one around is eager to deliver groceries. But there's no fridge in camp either, so saving the batter for later is also not an option. I'm desperate. I've used up my last apple and 2 eggs, which are precious resources. I can't waste them, so my muffins have to turn into something edible. I look around the kitchen desperately for something that I can use to replace flour in my recipe. I think about grinding up some almonds, but there are only 6 left in the bag. My next idea is to create Oreo meal out of a couple ancient packages of cookies, but I'm not willing to sacrifice them to the experiment. So I resign myself to picking pellets of rat poop out of a bowl of stale ground maize. 2 cups of theoretically shitless cornmeal go into the batter, and my creation is ready for the oven. I put the muffin tin in, and I leave the kitchen. And then I run back 10 minutes later when I smell fire. The muffins are burnt, they're completely flat on top, and they've crusted over the side of the baking tin. They're mealy, and they're hard to the touch on the outside, but completely wet underneath the crust. I'm still thinking about it, and I figure they might be edible if I let them finish baking, but at this point, I'm not optimistic about what will happen if I put them back in the oven. I decide I'm over it. I'm cursing myself for not dumping the batter out earlier, and I'm cursing myself for being in the middle of nowhere with no good food in the first place. Why am I doing this if there are no baboons to study? And why did I think I'd want to do this again? So I walk back across camp with the baking tin hanging limply out of my hand, and I end up a few feet away from my tent, standing in the grass just outside the entrance. I flip the muffin tin upside down and watch as the wet parts of my batter plop down next to my feet. I scrape the burnt parts off with a butter knife, and I tell myself that leaving the batter right here, right next to my tent, is a good idea. It might even make the whole experiment worthwhile if it attracts mongooses to hunt the snakes that live in my bathroom. And then I forget about the muffins completely. That night, I hear the sharp, sudden sound of a tree hitting the forest floor 200 feet away, and I know immediately that it's a herd of elephants. I'm still alone in camp, and I'm sitting in our main ensaka, which is a thatched roof hut with an open doorway that serves as a living room. The last thing I want to do is make eye contact with the elephants from under a structure made of bamboo and straw. So I run to my tent through the darkness, because at least it zips up. I sit in the middle with my arms around my knees, and I'm terrified of what will happen if the elephant sends me there. Several agonizing seconds of silence are broken by a trumpet call, which I interpret as an expression of surprise. That means I've been seen or smelled. The sounds of breaking branches get closer as the herd approaches, and a distance of 60 feet becomes 40, which then becomes 20. Suddenly I'm crying, and the elephants are only getting closer. When they stop outside my tent, all I can hear is their munching and my own heartbeat. Of all the ways to go, I'm thinking, I cannot believe this is it. Being trampled by elephants? Thousands of miles away from anyone I love? What a raw deal. Why did I think I could do this job? I think about my dad and how he cried at the airport. How could I let myself be killed? How could I let that happen to him? I couldn't let that happen to him. What if I run? Maybe I could make it to the brick shed in time? What if I throw something at them? I have a metal water bottle. Can I save myself by throwing a metal water bottle towards a herd of elephants? Do I have a knife in here? It was hopeless. So, without knowing why, I opened my phone's voice memos app and I hit the red button, ensuring that an audio recording of my flattening would exist for future generations. I opened my camera next, and the face that appeared on screen didn't quite seem like mine. It was twisted into an expression that I had never seen before. But I took a picture, and I sent it to 3 friends, along with an eloquent final message. I think an elephant is going to kill me. Even though I knew that with my spotty cell service, if I died, it would never be delivered. And then I waited. One by one, the elephants passed around my tent, completely disinterested in me and engrossed in whatever they were eating. They lingered nearby for a few hours, but by dawn, they were on to the next woodland. I finally fell asleep, and when I woke up later that morning, the sun was low in the sky, and it cast a light like late afternoon on the trees above camp. I left the safety of my tent and stood in the clearing behind it, where I had dumped out my muffins a day earlier. Above me, a family of vervet monkeys huddled together for warmth on a sunlit branch, and I shivered in the brisk and humid air. Overnight, a path of trampled grass had appeared. It began across camp, wrapped around my tent, and disappeared into the forest. I looked down, and the muffins were gone. I stared for a few moments at where I had piled my sludge a day earlier. I decided that I was grateful that at least the elephants thought my muffins were worth eating. Then I got dressed, ate half a potato, and walked for another 12 miles. And I kept walking after that. We found the baboons 3 months after they went missing, which was the longest they'd been gone in the history of the research project. And when we finally ran into them again, a bunch of females had brand new babies. There was suddenly a lot of work to do with taking pictures of the infants and figuring out their sex and who they belonged to, and I finally had my job back. Watching the babies learn to play and seeing all the new moms hang out with each other despite their differences in rank, and laughing at how all the baboons, even the macho adult males, were trying to sneak looks at the babies, reminded me of why I was there in the first place and why I wanted to be a field researcher. And after those 3 months and my visitation from the elephants, I knew I had the grit to be one. Thank you.
That was Ruby. If you'd like to learn more about her, visit our website, storyclatter.org. Our website is just one way to connect with Storyclatter, but there are so many other ways, and we hope you'll use them all. You can always follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Head to storyclatter.org to become a financial supporter. Or if you want to come to one of our shows, start your own Storyclatter show in your community, or even learn how to tell your own science story, you can learn all about that on our website too. This podcast is produced by me, Misha Gajewski, along with Jen Chen, Nikisha Roberts-Washington, and Aaron Barker, Executive Director and co-founder of The Storyclatter. The stories featured in today's episode were produced by Zach Stovall, Christine Williams, Nishi Jen, and Kayla Glenn. Special thanks goes out to Storyclatter's board and team. Our theme music is by Ghost, and next week I'll be back with stories about bad jobs. Join me for stories about the trials, tribulations of what happens when work doesn't work. The stories are so good. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.